Hey, what's up, everybody? Sean here. Welcome to another weekly recap video for my personal fitness journey. Thanks for being here. Before we get started, I just want to take the opportunity to give two shout outs for two new subscribers to the channel, Kevin Gallagher and Deanna Cazito. Hopefully, I'm pronouncing that right. Thank you guys for your support. Kevin, I met him over on Reddit on a alternate day fasting fitness journey type channel. He's actually doing something pretty similar where he's recording a lot of his fitness journey on YouTube as well. So I'll put a link in the description to his channel if you want to give him a shout out and a look for him as well. But as always, we're going to go through here and talk about the exercises each week. We're going to talk about the meals and then do the week to week comparison to see where we are after week 15 of the personal fitness journey. All right, so getting started. First exercise this week was strength training day, specifically doing powerlifting. So again, that's your squat, your deadlift, and your bench press. As always, the first exercise of the week is always the same as the last exercise of the week. So we have this labeled as week 15A. Discussed it in the previous videos, but we changed up the chart a little bit because it was getting a little bit crowded. So now we have week 1, basically the baseline of where I started at the very beginning. Week 5, which is essentially 4 weeks later. It's about a month after it. It's another 4 weeks and tracking all of those. And then the last couple of weeks until the next month. So basically until week 17, we'll be seeing weeks 14, 15, 16, 17, and then that'll be consolidated into a monthly recap as well. Again, week 13, that was after the 12-day war out we were deployed. I had to reset some of the exercises and by progress just because everything got disrupted for those 12 days, dropped everything, but then been slowly back on the right track ever since. Good news here, if you're looking at it, you see a lot of green. So making progress on this first exercise of the week, have 9 reps, 8 reps, 8 reps for that middle set there, 4 reps for each of those final sets, those failure sets. So you'll see later in the week, I actually hit the maxes that I'm going for 10 reps, 5 reps for the other ones. So that means we'll be coming around and increasing the weight for all of the exercises the next time these come around. Didn't have the calorie delta on this one here for some reason, but this one I believe was about plus 200 calories. And as you can see there, a lot of different foods. I actually took some time to get something a little bit less healthy, a bit of a break. So I had some ice cream and some peach cobbler there in dinner. Again, just emphasizing that you don't necessarily need a completely strict diet where you can't have anything fun or delicious to eat. I have some chicken wings there with some sauces. When you're doing something like alternate day fasting, the way the calories come in, you are allowed to go through and grab something that may not necessarily be as healthy if you're eating every day and still lose the weight. Going through here, traditional stuff I had for breakfast with the eggs. I've got some tuna in there for some additional protein. For lunch, had the salads. I have a lot of greens and some fried chicken there for dinner. And for lunch, lunch was the fried chicken. Dinner was the chicken strips. But overall, pretty good balance, minus the grains. Again, I've been trying to keep a lot of the grains out of the equation just because I don't think they do a lot for me. Day 2 was a running day, so I actually made some progress, running even faster. So I'm at 12 minutes and 51 seconds. My overall goal is to get under 11 minutes in a mile and a half. I don't know if I'm going to get it before the end of this deployment in a couple months, but we'll see. Good news is with the 1 minute sets, I'm basically about 50 seconds in each of them before I had to take a real quick break and finish it up. When I started, I was only able to get about 30 seconds and then finish it up there, other than the arm circles. And arm circles, I'm doing forward small, forward or back small, forward big, and then back big. So 4 different types of arm circles in there. Each of those a minute each. As you can see here, the calorie delta, because they don't eat anything on the fasting days, was about 3,300. So I've calculated out roughly, I think, my maintenance calories at about 2,400 to 2,450 maybe. And then with the exercises from the running plus the 3 miles of running at night that I don't necessarily track on each of these days, took me about 3,300 calories into the negative. As I mentioned before, it was a fasting day, so no food, just black tea, had some black coffee, been doing a lot of water. Specifically, there's this carbonated sparkle mineral water, add some lemon into it, add some salt into that, and then add a little bit of creatine into it. And then I use that as an electrolyte drink on the fasting days. Day 3, so this was Tuesday, which means it was a boxing day. So I had the 45-minute boxing class in addition to all of the regular exercises. Hammer curl, you notice I made 10 reps on that failure set. So that means the next instance of this, we'll see 30 pounds being the baseline set, and then we'll bump up to 35 and 5 reps for that failure set there. Get close on some of the other ones as well. Tricep curls, that's an example of one of them where last week I actually did hit the max on the failure set. So last week it was 25 pounds and 10 reps for the failure set. So that means I increased the weight to 25 pounds for the base set and then 30 pounds for the failure set. So that's why you see that 5 there being dropped down to a red, because I went from 10 reps down to 5 reps, but everywhere else it increased as far as the weight. So overall, the total volume in this case being the weight times the reps times the sets increased. That being said, with the boxing class, the 3-mile run, and then all the exercises here, I had about a calorie delta of a 180 calorie surplus. Let's see the type of food that I ate. Again, a lot of salads, 2 different salads, one in lunch, one in dinner. Have the traditional stuff for the eggs. So this was Tuesday, so Taco Tuesday. I originally was going to try to do it as a breakfast burrito, but the shell was all stale. So essentially just didn't eat the shell, but ate everything else. Had some avocado, both for breakfast and for lunch. Some fish there for lunch. Dinner, some Mexican rice, and some fish. But overall, everything pretty healthy. Did treat myself to a Nutter Butter at dinner time after eating dinner for a snack. But everything else, again, had a little bit of grains this time with Spanish rice. Everything else essentially the same. Next day here was the cardio day. So row machine, I was able to keep it to the same level here, 5,600 meters in the 30 minutes. And then I'm doing 5 minutes jumping, 1 minute rest for 5 sets for the jump rope. I guess the green one there should have technically been black because I kept that the same. And again, the row machine and the running in the evening burn a lot of calories. So led to about a 3,300, almost 3,400 calorie deficit on a fasting day. No food, so bypass this. Day 5, this was another example of, at least with the shoulder press, where previously I hit 10 reps on the failure set. So bumped up the weight for the base set and bumped up the weight on the failure set. So we have that red 5 there, but we have green in terms of both weights. And all the other exercises that you see are coming close to the next increase for the failure sets. So we got a bunch of 9s going across the board for those failure set reps. In general, looking at these charts, mostly in an upward direction. Again, there was that real big dip down in week 13 after the 12-day war when I had to reset a lot of the exercises. Going back to week 9, that's prior to me changing up to following this pattern of the standard set, the base set, and the failure set. But prior to that, I was doing essentially just more reps instead of more weight. And then I adjusted after week 9. So you see a little bit dip there as well. I don't know why I didn't include the calorie delta on this one as well, but that one was also close to about 200 to 300 calorie in the plus. As you can see here, the food that we had, eggs, we had some grapes, some dates, a lot of different fruits on this day, a peach, had some raisins that I typically have within the yogurt, but again, some more fish, some more meatballs. Dinner was very protein heavy. So fish, a bunch of meatballs. I asked for a small serving and they gave me a crap ton there. Almost didn't eat them all, but I didn't want them to go to waste. Had the cauliflower with Parmesan. That was good. The Parmesan cheese, I added that to the salad as well. But everything else here, essentially the same. I had some corn. I guess corn could technically fall under the category of a grain. I didn't have any oatmeal. I don't know why I had that on that, but we can substitute oatmeal there for corn as a grain. And then that's the only other change. Day 6, this is another cardio day. So I'm still in that weird situation. I can't figure it out. Where everywhere else, I'm making improvements on the bike, the stationary bike, using the same device every time, the same settings. I'm slowly getting less and less miles, not by much. Went from 7.25 miles to 7.11 to 7.02, but it's still going down each week. And I feel like I'm putting in the same amount of effort. I don't know. Maybe one of these weeks I'll figure out what I'm doing wrong and get some more horsepower into it and get some additional miles. Stepper, that's staying pretty consistent just because the machine, you set it on a certain level and it's always going to come at the same pace. But calorie delta here, again, between 35 minutes of bike and 35 minutes on a stair stepper, plus 3 miles of running, well over 3,500 calories into the negative. And of course, because there's no food, nothing to balance out that calorie deficit. Finally, coming up on day 7, that's today. So again, wrapping back around to powerlifting and green across the board here. In fact, all 3 of the exercises had the middle and the final sets reach maxes. So next week, deadlift, the base set is going to be 45 pounds or 145 pounds. 165 is going to be 5 reps times 3. And then 185 is going to be the 3 reps times 3. And that's going to be essentially the same for the squat, and then bench press, everything's going to roll up as well. Today, got about 1,100, 1,200 steps. Again, throwing in those miles. And then all said and done, had a calorie surplus of almost 300. So what I have today, breakfast burrito in the morning. So I did opt for the shell. I did opt for some Swiss cheese, which I don't always do, mainly because breakfast itself was otherwise small. Had a little bit of pineapple, used some of the fried eggs for the meat inside the breakfast burrito, had some refried beans in there, some rice. For lunch, also had some rice and some fish with some mixed vegetables and a salad. Threw some tuna into the salad, threw some hard-boiled eggs in the salad. And then for dinner, I had a sandwich wrap, chicken salad specifically, and then threw on the lettuce, tomato, some more Swiss cheese. That itself, other than the Swiss cheese and the tortilla making up the vast majority of the calories there, had a little bit left over. So I decided to opt for some chocolate cake. Forgot to grab a milk, but that's the only other thing I probably would have added here. But yeah, so that's the food. That's the exercises for the week. As always, I like to give you guys an opportunity to throw it in the comments what you think my changes are going to be as far as weight gain, weight loss, inches around the stomach gained or lost. Last week was a bit of a surprise because doing everything that I had, I actually gained 0.02 pounds or 0.2 pounds. Not exactly sure how that happened. But again, if you watch some of my shorts this week, that get a little bit of a hint of what's coming next. I was able to lose 3.8 pounds. So with that, and what's odd about it is because I did exactly the same thing, had roughly the same type of meals, same type of exercises as last week. But last week, instead of losing 3.8 pounds, I gained 0.2 pounds. It's weird. I initially thought maybe the scale might have had issues with it when I was weighing, but I also had no movement on my waist either. This week, along with the 3.8 pounds that I lost, I also lost about 1.5 inches on the waist compared to last week. When I did the calculations last week, it should have been close to 3 pounds that I lost based off of the calorie deficit. but again, it went up 0.2 pounds. This week, based off of the calorie deficit that I calculated, I was anticipating losing about 3.7 pounds. And reality, I lost 3.8. Maintenance for calories is getting pretty accurate. As you can see there in the bottom left, in terms of the scale that's used to track the body fat counter, I'm at just under 18%. Still got a long way to go. I'm trying to get closer to 10%. But if you look at the pictures, you definitely can see a lot of improvement from where I started in the top left. And in fact, the next slide I think is actually going to cover that as well, side by side. You can see a still shot of where I started 15 weeks ago and where I am now, and it's almost like a completely different person. So for anybody out there trying to do this, there is hope. I encourage you to stick with it. Throw some feedback into the comments below. Let me know if you're doing this as well. I'll give you a shout out. But other than that, for now, that's all I got.